Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Classified Captures. This week we'll be showcasing some chilling and disturbing footage that you won't want to miss. We kick off today's collection of spine-chilling trail cam footage with a mind-boggling encounter that still has us scratching our heads. Picture this. You set out to capture adorable footage of baby bear cubs, only to accidentally capture something far more sinister, the Dogman. Now, here's the question. Would you dare return to that area, or would you keep your distance for good? Confused? Allow me to set the stage and explain what happened. The owner of this trail cam footage had been closely monitoring a pregnant bear, not with the intention of hunting or harming it, but simply to capture the precious moments of its cub's birth. When the time was ripe and the cubs were about to arrive, he strategically placed his trail camera near the bear's den, hoping to capture breathtaking footage of the newborns. He returned later to see that the cubs had been born and decided to review the footage the trail cam had captured. However, what he witnessed was nothing short of ominous and horrifying. He expected to see cubs, but what he saw on his screen was a creature of nightmares. The creature on the screen appeared to be a peculiar blend of man and canine, a fearsome hybrid that couldn't be categorized as a full-blooded wolf or dog, yet exuded a savage aura. It certainly wasn't a werewolf, since there was no sign of a full moon on the day the recording was made. Bewildered and seeking answers, he turned to the online community for assistance. When the paranormal experts caught wind of the footage, they instantly recognized the truth. They knew exactly what it was. The man had unwittingly captured one of the clearest and closest images we have of the elusive Dogman creature. Even the scientific community, typically skeptical of such claims, couldn't refute this evidence. The man had narrowly escaped a chilling encounter with the Dogman. Truly spine-tickling, don't you think? Now, imagine yourself in his shoes. Would you have had the courage to venture back into those same woods? Would you venture into the woods if you suspected Bigfoot was lurking there? Many of you probably answered with a resounding no. However, the owner of this extraordinary footage, turning away was simply not an option. Allow me to tell you her remarkable story. It was during a turkey hunting expedition when she spotted two unfamiliar figures moving ahead of her. As she focused her gaze, she quickly realized that these beings, although moving like humans, were far from human in appearance. Their bodies were covered in an abundance of hair that surpassed anything a typical human could possess. Even the hairiest individuals wouldn't come close to their level of hairiness. There was a larger, more muscular figure, likely a male, and a relatively smaller one, presumably female. The male seems to have a relatively small being, possibly a baby Bigfoot. Naturally, she was startled and scared, but instead of fleeing the scene, she took out a camera and recorded them. Why do people even do this? What if those beings noticed her? What if she wasn't alone in encountering them? What if they harbored aggressive tendencies and were open to the idea of harming or even devouring her? Fortunately, we need not imagine the outcome of such scenarios, as she survived the encounter and we now possess this remarkable footage. But now, let me pose a question to you. What would you have done in that harrowing situation? We've encountered our fair share of spine-chilling creatures, but nothing quite like the one before us. I mean, seriously, what on earth could this creature be? If you're at a loss for words, don't worry, you're not alone. A fan on this channel was going through the woods when he suddenly heard eerie sounds. These weren't your typical forest noises, they were wild and ferocious, like nothing he'd ever experienced in all his years of venturing into the wilderness. It was crystal clear to him that his life hung in the balance, and he needed no one to tell him this. Naturally, he became attentive and heightened his senses. He was not gonna let whatever the creature was take him by surprise. He had to live. He had to get back to his family. Suddenly, the environment went silent. Too silent. It was as though time had stopped and everything was moving in bullet time. As much as he would have loved this to mean all was well, and he had nothing to worry about, he knew better. This was the calm right before the storm, and he was right. Out of nowhere, a creature emerged from the depths of the woods a few hundred meters away from him. He strained to discern the nature of this enigmatic being, but his words failed him. It possessed a lion-like face coupled with a body that bore human-like features, albeit excessively hairy and reminiscent of an ape. Fortunately, the creature appeared more interested in intimidation than in pursuing him, allowing him to escape unharmed. In a stroke of luck, he managed to capture this image, which he eagerly sent us for analysis. Our team has dedicated days to deciphering the true nature of this enigma, scouring through countless folklore references. Yet we find ourselves at a loss, unable to definitively identify the creature. Trust me when I say we've encountered and studied a vast array of folklore. We have no option but to pass it on to you. Do you know what creature this is, or do you think the whole thing is a hoax? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Can trees move? If you answered with a firm no, then you shared the same thoughts as the person behind this perplexing footage. He witnessed a shadowy figure that he initially thought was a tree moving from one spot to the other, as though it didn't want him to notice it. Naturally, he was left puzzled and bewildered. But if it wasn't really a tree, then what in the world was he looking at? Now, you have to understand that he was moving around at dawn, so visibility was on the low side. And given how early it was, he became very frightened. There was a creature lurking around, and he couldn't tell what kind of creature it was. I know, I would be scared too. Thankfully, the creature seemed uninterested in him, merely seeking to evade his presence. However, for reasons that often baffle us, he decided to return to that very location a few days later. Why do people make such choices? Why would one willingly go back to a perilous spot, knowing full well what danger awaits? Nevertheless, on his second visit, the creature ensured it made its presence known. It emitted peculiar sounds unlike anything the man had ever heard from any familiar creature. Take a moment to listen to it. The instant he heard these sounds, he had his confirmation. The encounter was real, and the entity in the woods with him was undoubtedly non-human. But what could it be? While he couldn't provide a definitive answer, he held one suspicion: Bigfoot. Do you believe that there are occult groups living among us? Well, if you didn't, prepare to have your worldview shaken by this compelling footage. Take a look at the figure dancing, or whatever it is, in the woods, donning a hood and surrounded by an eerie silence. No audience, no music, just this lone individual. The TikToker named Brian Young, who posted this video, stumbled upon this surreal scene while exploring the woods. Naturally, it wasn't just a startling sight, it sent shivers down his very spine. If you listen closely to Brian's commentary in the video, you'll understand just how unnerved he was. Let's focus on the mysterious figure in the video. What do you think he was doing? Could it be some form of initiation for aspiring occult members? Or perhaps an attempt to summon something or someone? We've witnessed countless horrors and occult movies where scenes like this unfold, but can't seem to place our finger on it. Do tell us what you think. We'd love to hear it. When we set out to compile a list of captivating captures and intriguing footage, I never anticipated stumbling upon something as baffling as a deer with a bucket lodged in its antlers. Yes, you heard that right. There's a bucket on its antlers, and even seeing it, it's still hard to believe it's real. Sure, we've encountered deer with foliage entangled in their antlers before, a natural and understandable part of wildlife. But how on earth do we explain this? Was the bucket intentionally placed there by someone, or did it accidentally become wedged when the deer wandered through human possessions? Intrigued by this peculiar sight, I delved into some research and discovered that far too often, deer end up with objects trapped in their antlers due to human interference. Personally, this realization leaves me with a sense of discomfort. We're already causing substantial harm to our planet, and this should never become an accepted norm. Deer lives matter too. If all you noticed in this footage was the caribou running, I wouldn't blame you. The owner of this particular footage had possessed it for a staggering 16 years without realizing there was something peculiar lurking within. It wasn't until he uploaded the video online that the paranormal community identified something the man himself hadn't noticed. Upon closer examination of the footage, you'll notice a dark, shadowy figure trailing behind the caribou. The figure moves with remarkable speed, almost as if it's using the caribou as a form of camouflage. Now, why is this significant, you may ask? Well, upon analyzing the video, experts estimate that the creature must be at least 8 feet tall to stand out the way it does and cover such a considerable distance in such a short span of time. Now, consider this. Throughout the entire history of mankind, there have been very few individuals who have measured up to 8 feet in height, and when it comes to other creatures and animals, aside from the likes of pythons, giraffes, polar bears, elephants, or even ostriches, it's highly unlikely to encounter beings even remotely as tall. So what could this enigmatic creature be? It exhibits fur covering its entire body, walks on 2 legs, and displays signs of remarkable intelligence. Does that ring any bells? You guessed it, Bigfoot. The paranormal community is fairly confident that what we're witnessing here is none other than Bigfoot. What do you think? Next, we have a trail cam capture of what I can only describe as an evil-looking creature. At first glance, you might be tempted to think it's a human playing pranks or even cosplay, but as you go through the capture, it becomes painfully apparent that this is no ordinary being. Its pale and hairless skin, along with its sunken eyes, long limbs, sharp claw-like fingers, and eerie way of moving, brings to mind a mythical creature known as the Rake. Now, when I say the Rake, I'm not referring to the tool you use on your lawns. No, this creature is far more vile and dangerous, with few who encounter it ever living to tell the tale. The origins of this creature remain shrouded in mystery. Some speculate it's the result of a science experiment gone wrong, while others believe it's a human cursed to forever remain in this horrifying form. This chilling footage was captured by a trail cam set up by an older couple residing in the remote regions of Ohio. But why would such a creature venture into Ohio? Could someone be deliberately trying to frighten them? Well, if they lived in the city, we could make that assumption, but they resided far from anyone who would engage in such pranks. This can only mean one thing. What we are witnessing is the real deal. Now let's talk about aliens. Yes, aliens. Don't think they are real? Well, that's only because you haven't seen the next footage. Did you catch it? Did you witness those intricate crop circles materialize out of thin air, and those 2 mysterious dots gracefully gliding above them? Could they be more than mere specks? What if I told you they were actually extraterrestrial spaceships? Now, I understand if you're skeptical. You wouldn't be the first. This footage dates back to the 1900s, precisely the year 1996. When the man who captured this astonishing video shared it with his contemporaries, they dismissed it as a mere product of video editing. But hold on. Was such advanced editing even possible in the 90s? Sure, if you had access to expensive equipment and extensive training, which the man in question lacked. Could he have had it edited earlier? Well, not exactly. The only way that's possible is if he employed people to create the circle after he'd edited the video, because the crop circles were discovered exactly where he filmed the footage when his colleagues investigated the site. It leaves us wondering why they didn't believe him. Could the presence of extraterrestrial beings have somehow influenced their skepticism? The answer remains elusive. Guess we'll never know. Next up, we delve into the mysterious realm of Dewey Lake, Michigan, and its elusive monster. If you haven't yet heard of this creature, don't worry, you're not alone. It's been buried deep in the annals of local lore, dismissed by many as nothing more than an old wives' tale. But what if I told you that there's compelling footage that challenges the prevailing beliefs? Some were quick to label the creature in the footage as an ordinary ape. But upon closer examination, it becomes clear that this is no ape. The way it moves, the peculiar texture of its fur, it defies all conventional explanations. However, there's one creature that perfectly matches the description of the monster of Dewey Lake. The elusive Sasquatch is believed to roam the area, hidden away from prying eyes. Until now, no one had ever caught a glimpse of or interacted with this enigmatic being. That is, until this captivating footage emerged. So what are your thoughts? Is this authentic evidence of the monster of Dewey Lake, or could it be an intricately crafted hoax? I invite you to share your theories and opinions in the comments section below. Together, let's unravel the mystery. Still on the topic of Bigfoot, let's journey to Minerva, Ohio. Now imagine this scenario. Your kids excitedly run up to you claiming they've spotted Bigfoot roaming your property. Naturally, you dismiss their claims as nothing more than their active imagination, right? That's precisely what the owner of this captivating footage did. That was at least the case until he saw the dark creature lurking around the woods close to his home while working the fields with a neighbor of his. You can imagine the shock and disbelief both men felt. For the one who sent the capture, he realized how much danger he had potentially put himself and his family in by not believing or paying attention to his kids. Suddenly, it all began to make sense. The mysterious pile of dead chickens they had discovered, it wasn't the work of coyotes or bobcats. The Bigfoot was responsible. They now had an idea where the eerie howls that had baffled them for so long came from. It had to be the elusive Bigfoot. And here is where things get even more intriguing. Soon after the owner's personal encounter, his trail cam managed to capture the image you see before you. It's mind-boggling, isn't it? Unbelievable evidence that adds another layer of mystery to the existence of the Bigfoot. Wild, huh? Have you ever experienced that chilling sensation that your life hangs by a thread? Not the fleeting discomfort of closing your eyes in the shower, but something far more sinister and more unnerving. This is precisely what the individual who captured this spine-tingling footage felt when venturing through the dense woods with his faithful dog. Overwhelmed by a deep sense of dread, they came to a sudden halt, scanning their surroundings for any sign of danger. And then, there it was, an ominous presence lurking just behind their pet. Two glowing eyes fixated on them. He made it out of the place safely somehow, but went back during the day to make sure he'd actually seen what he'd seen. Why do people do this? Once again, I don't understand. If you had footage, it was there. Why go back? Either way, he found the creature the second time and confirmed that it was indeed there. It didn't, however, look like anything from our world. From the footage, we can tell it looks otherworldly. Yet we can't seem to make it out from any of the myths and folklore we know. This is where we turn to you. Can you help us unveil the identity of this enigmatic being? Share your insights, theories, and speculations. We'd love to hear it. Think that was peculiar? Brace yourself for this next footage. Throughout my experiences, I've used the word zombie in various contexts, but never did I fathom it applying to a deer. However, when you see this footage, you'll understand why zombie is an apt description. Is it really a zombie, though? We had to seek the help of the scientific community for this one, and here's what we discovered. The deer in question is afflicted by a condition known as cutaneous fibromas, or more commonly, deer warts. Although these hairless tumors may not be as painful as they appear, they unquestionably lead to a diminished quality of life for the affected deer. Looking at this deer, we don't need a vet's opinion to know that this is a severe and very uncomfortable case for the deer. There's not much we can do, which makes it all the more sad. Still on deer, have you ever seen a number of them gathered around a trail cam before? Well, we haven't, especially with them all gazing at the trail cam as though they were posing for a group photo. I don't know why this worries me so much. Does anyone else find this peculiar, or is it just me? Here's one intriguing thought to consider. Could it be that these deer possess a level of intelligence beyond our expectations? Could it be possible that these deer intentionally conceal their true abilities, keeping their schemes and plans hidden from us? Am I starting to sound paranoid? I feel like I am, but think about it. There's little we know about our world after all. If you've watched movies or played games, then you're probably familiar with the concept of animals and plants getting mutated due to exposure to nuclear radiation. But does that apply to real life? If you've seen the red trees in the exclusion zone of Chernobyl, then you'll know that it does. But what about animals? Well, there are some examples I can use. Take a look at this creature that looks like a cross between a canine and a wolf. There are rumors that this is an image taken from Chernobyl. It's even been nicknamed the Dogman of Chernobyl. Unlike the Dogman, which is a supernatural creature, this is purely considered the result of heavy radiation. Many think it's a wolf that has been mutated by the radiation in Chernobyl to look like it does. Of course, the government denies that this is real, but what do you think? Imagine going on a trip and documenting each instant of it, including the various scenery and snow covered, only to discover that this was a creature standing on one of the Alps. Knowing how far you are, you know that this has to be a pretty tall creature for it to be visible. If you take a look at this footage, you see exactly that, but what could that creature at the top of the Alp be? No one can say for sure, which is why the group of friends uploaded it online. Some in the online community who saw it thought it was a Yeti, while others thought it was probably a tree and nothing special. To get to the bottom of this, the friends went back up, and guess what? It was no longer there. If it was a tree, it would still be there, and how would a tree survive there anyway? But if it's not there, and it really is a creature, then we have a confirmation of the existence of the Yeti. Or what do you think? Have you come across a mutant deer with two heads? If you answered no, today's your lucky day. Enjoy the footage. As much as I'd love to believe that somewhere there's a Siamese deer or the deer in the footage is one, the facts do not align in that direction. What you see is purely the result of an illusion and nothing more. Had the individual who took the footage moved to a different point, it would have been very apparent, but she was equally as confused and perplexed as you, so we're going to let this one slide. Can you guess the identity of these three mysterious flying objects? Well, if your answer was aeroplanes, you might want to think again. We seldom have our aircraft flying in such formations, and they don't glow like these ones did. The person who captured this footage shared it online, and many others shared aircraft moving in similar formations in their locality. Neither knew what it really was, but all were convinced that they had just seen spacecraft. Not ones manufactured by us, but possibly by aliens. What do you think? Do you believe there are aliens among us, or is there a perfectly logical explanation for this phenomenon? Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Are there extinct creatures still roaming our world undetected? This cam footage seems to suggest so. The creature you see looks like a mix of a deer and a fox. It actually does look like the Tasmanian tiger, which is thought to have gone extinct in 1936. How then could this particular one exist? Well, we don't know. If anyone has any info on this creature, do share it in the comments section. Still on creatures that should not exist, behold the giant moose. The giant moose, also known as the Alaskan moose, can grow as tall as 7 feet at the shoulder, with exceptional cases reaching a staggering height of 10 feet. Yes, you heard correctly, up to 10 feet in height. The individual who captured this footage saw one of the creatures and thought he could bring it down with his bow and arrow. Taking aim, he released the arrow, striking the massive moose. Astonishingly, the creature stood back up, its powerful gaze fixed upon the hunter. In that split second, a rush of adrenaline surged through his veins and his life seemed to flash before their eyes. Fortunately, the colossal beast seemed uninterested, its eyes locked on the hunter for a lingering moment before gracefully retreating into the wilderness. What would you have done if you were the one? To conclude today's compilation, we have an intriguing puzzle for you. Did you catch a glimpse of what mysterious translucent being darted across our screen? While opinions are divided, some are convinced it's a genuine ghostly apparition, while others remain skeptical, deeming it a cleverly crafted hoax. But instead of sharing my own perspective based on the evidence at hand, I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know your stance, and it'll show me you've watched till the end. What's your take? Do you think this footage captures a genuine supernatural entity, or do you lean toward the idea of an elaborate hoax? Declare your stand and share your reasoning. I'll be eagerly reading through the comments, and who knows, you might even receive a special shout-out in our upcoming video. Thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned for our next installment, and until then, take care.